So hello everybody, this is a talk at Le Bureau, which is a very special place hosted by Silke Haas and Lars Monshausen. It's an old office which is originally 70s furniture, so it's really a rare thing. And Lars and Silke were so kind to invite us to have a talk here on the occasion of Wendy White's solo exhibition at Van Horn in Düsseldorf. And Wendy's sitting here. If you don't know Wendy, which you really should, but if you don't know, I mean, this is for the people on YouTube. She is a New York City-based artist, and this is her fourth solo at Van Horn, so it's an anniversary. And we're sitting actually on a piece by Wendy, which is called the Jofa, which the name comes from jeans and sofa. And I think probably we just start with the Jofa because we're sitting on it. So what is that about?
Well, first of all, thank you. And thank you to Lars and Silke for providing this amazing venue. I love it. It's beautiful. It's my style. I'm so happy. And thank you for doing this with me. And it is our fourth show together, so yes. I feel like this is a milestone for us and for me, as I've never had 4 shows with a single gallery.
Yes.
So I feel really happy to be here and have so many friends here online and in the room. The Jofa, I started, oh gosh, where do I start? They began in a very complicated way, and then they were absorbed into my work in a larger, more expansive way. But I started working with denim after the 2016 election in America. Mm-hmm. I wanted to cut something. Quite frankly, I wanted to take scissors and cut something. I wanted to collage something because I felt that starting from scratch, my brain wouldn't go there. I needed something that already existed, had a personality, had a connotation, had a place in the world, mm-hmm. and then I wanted to work with it to build something. I started with 2-dimensional works by collaging onto stretched canvas, and then I moved into making furniture because it was more immersive, and I thought how great if people could be in it, on it, with it. I chose to use men's denim jeans, all very American recognizable brands, Levi's, Lee, Wrangler, brands and types of clothing that are associated with durability, with Americana, with westward expansion, manifest destiny.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So this is what we're sitting on.
This is what we're sitting on now. This is where it started.
Yeah,
yes.
This is where it started, and those are really, really cut as far as I remember. They cut at the
yes.
crotch.
Yeah.
So with whatever you make out of that, and so this all is part of you when you think of jeans. I mean, when we think of jeans, we think of America, James Dean, you know, all of these things, and then it came to jeans paintings, and you mm-hmm. used it in different ways. You used them as a frame, and the general thing is because a lot of pop cultural aspects appear in your work, and what is the deep interest you have? Because you work in groups of work, and they might look very different sometimes, but some things always appear again.
It's true. I work in series, and all of the series are ongoing, but sometimes there are years in between when I pick things up and work on them again. I don't mean individual pieces, but the series itself. So often I will bring a new material into a series years later, and it's still part of the same mm-hmm. series. However, it has this, I'm always trying to stay in the moment. And that's why my work does change. And I've made it my mission to allow it to change, to build the change into it. I think everything I make is against convention, mm-hmm. against the canon of painting.
So what's the canon of painting?
It's male. And it is conservative to a large extent. And
you mean in this way that it's kind of like easily digestible?
No, not all of it, but I think artists are best understood when they don't change, and there's a lot of pressure not to change, and so there's a lot of anti-style or anti-experimentation at the core. So when you're studying, it's all about making something new. And then, when you're in the real art world, it's about
making your
staying the
style.
same. Staying the same so that you don't lose anyone. And I think I've always been against that, or at least I've been irreverent toward that.
But that you're putting a lot of pressure on yourself by having to be inventive all the time.
No, that's
because
natural.
It's natural.
Yeah, it's
an
natural.
easy thing for you.
Yeah, it is.
And you go through the world and see all that stuff flying around, and that inspires
if you trust your
you.
gut, then you
Yeah.
just let the right things in at the right time, or sometimes it's not the right thing, but you let things in.
And do you find out, you do it, and then you think like, oh, it's not the right thing?
I believe you have to make it. You have to make the thing.
Oh, you have to make it.
You have to make it. It has to live in the real world, and then
And then it proves if it works or not.
Yeah, and you really have to go to, you have to let yourself be real. And some very small or maybe seemingly insignificant things can actually be very profound. So I've looked to things that I'm actually, I think for a long time I was making work I wasn't interested in, like in school and beyond, not in my professional, whatever, I hate to use that word, in my career, I don't like that word either. But I think in school and for a while after studying, I wanted to be a different kind of artist. I wanted to be a very intellectual painter. And I thought that this was how you did it. You read a lot and you applied that to your work. And I was very bored with what I made. And it wasn't until I actually let my real interests into the work that I made good work.
I see. But still you have to premeditate something you do, because like, for example, the fake brush strokes that are a lot in your work, which are, as far as I understood, a reference to those kind of like expressive paintings, brush strokes, So, but they are, because they cannot happen spontaneously. So you construct them. So you have a certain kind of premeditation of how a work should be, and then you let it happen. Or how is that process?
Well, I can't make drawings. I don't make drawings. I make drawings of spaces. I see how things will fit. I make drawings of formats. So for the multiple canvas pieces that are in our show at the Gallery, I knew how I wanted things to fit together, but I never know what I want the painting to look like. I just have a general sensibility about the composition.
I always thought you would know exactly what you're doing. So you just also like spraying in a more spontaneous way?
I mean, I'm not going to say I don't think about it before I do it. I absolutely do. And I practice some of these marks that I make that are very free. I practice them in the air before I approach the canvas.
Air. Okay.
And sometimes on the wall, but usually in the air.
And before, like for example, so because you just mentioned the show, we're going to go deeper in the show. That's a whole new body of work, which relates, it's multiple canvases, some of them. Some of them are these pixel frames, which are also canvases in special frames you have built. And you have something which I would have called the three stripes, or it kind of extends from the three stripe. So there are many things you did, but in a completely new way. So if you can speak a little bit about how that show came together, because you offered something completely new for that show, and we were just diving in and saying, okay, do something completely new and see what comes out of it.
Yeah, it makes it sound easy. I struggled. I struggled with them.
Me too.
Oh.
Yeah, because it's a surprise.
Okay.
I didn't get to choose. I trusted you.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've worked together long enough now that we trust each other, and I trust you to tell me if something isn't working for you, and I think you trust me to. Okay, well, this goes back to what I was saying about working in series and not making the same thing. At first, it was a problem for me. I think galleries and wanted me to do the same thing, and they wanted the next show to look like the last one. But if you do it long enough, they stop wanting that. And if you persist at innovating every time, eventually, if you don't do it, it's a letdown.
And if you see the big picture, you can still see the red thread.
Yeah, you could definitely
You can see that there is a connection between all bodies of works. It's still all Wendy White. And if you know Wendy White, you can recognize Wendy White, although in each series there's innovation.
Yeah, I believe so, and I hope so. And I think...
So what's that series now, the whole show? Can you say a little bit about that?
Interior Exotics.
Yeah, Interior Exotics.
There are multiple canvas works. I've been working with multiple canvas for probably 15 years. I began doing it for a couple of reasons. I love the multiple canvas tradition in New York for large-scale painting, you know, Frank Stella, et cetera. I came out of a sculpture background. So I've always been into building an object, and I believe that the building of the canvas is the first set of marks. So I build my own canvases. I stretch them, you know, build them, stretch them, paint them. There are a few things that I have fabricated, but most things I like to put my hands on and build. So I don't believe in the illusion of painting, you know, that it's a window, that it's just a surface. I don't think it's just a thing that you put a picture on. I believe that the whole object is a unit. It functions in the world as a thing. So it's really a sculpture with a surface. So all of my work goes back to painting, but it's all very object-based. So Interior Exotics, how can I explain it? I think it's a vibe on the moment for me, coming out of the last few years, what we've all shared universally.
COVID time also?
Yeah, a domestic repurposing or reforming, reimagining the domestic space, but also the dual meaning of Interior Exotics is the head space, which is the real space. It's even more real than the objects and the furniture and the chairs and the props that we surround ourselves with and comfort ourselves with in our homes, but the headspace that has changed, having spent more time alone.
Because I notice in those works, when I'm just looking at them by myself, that I felt that you did quite a lot of series which were kind of like very singular. It was, for example, a portrait of a tennis player, of a race car driver, and you knew, okay, it's about that. And in this, suddenly things come together, like the Brancusi sculpture, but motor oil, advertisement stuff, and you think, like, how does that come together? I know that Wendy's interested in that and interested in that, but how do they come together? And then on that surface, it's like everything's anywhere in our lives is happening parallel.
Yeah.
It's all on the same, you know, we click there, it's happening parallel. And this is when I understood that it's very contemporary. The work is like really showing what we experience. And it's for the first time a little bit more atmospheric, I would probably say.
Perfect. I mean, you just said it. That you absolutely got it on the nose.
Sorry.
No, it's perfect. It's wonderful. That makes me so happy. Yeah, it's exactly. I think this is why I didn't come right to these paintings. I didn't make them the first time. I made them, I tore them off the stretchers, I made them again, I tore them off again. I changed the size of the stretchers, I changed the corner elements, I changed the color of the corner elements. They were hard won. They were fought for.
Yeah, they're really different.
Yeah.
So how did this super bright yellow color come about? Why didn't have it to be such a signal color?
Yellow's my color. I always go back to yellow. It's a neon, but it's also, it's very unspecific in a way.
How is it unspecific?
I don't know. It moves. It moves between. It doesn't really have a value or a specific connotation, I think.
Not in the way you use it, so it's not sun or
to
something.
me anyway. Yeah. Well, it's bright. It is sun, but it's also, or it's light maybe, in general.
But it's very
signal.
also
it feels mutable to me. It feels as if it can shift and move between meanings.
And yesterday there were some people in the show which are not so familiar with your work, and so they were asking, which for me was kind of like I didn't understand, because it was so obvious that you see the brush strokes, you see that the three actually bodies of work that are in the show, which are what was the name, mod frames or
corner mods. That's what I'm calling them.
Corner mods, the pixel frames, and the alone in public. Those peace signs that people were really asking if it's the same artist, especially with the pixel frames and the corner mods. And I thought, like, sure, it's the same artist. Why don't you see that?
It's so obvious.
But it's obvious, but still, it's different.
Yeah.
So
This is what I'm talking about.
Yeah. So the pixel frames come from a different mindset then.
Well, I wouldn't say different. I mean, this is a series, and there are 3 of them here in the room, and that's why I'm looking at them.
Yeah, that's the pixel frames there, which you cannot see
I
on
have
YouTube,
been-
but you can see it on the website later.
I've been making paintings within painted frames for probably 10 years.
Yeah.
And the PVC frames have taken on letter form shapes. They've been more traditional frame, rectangular square frames. They've been mirrored. They've been epoxied with kind of a hand manipulated material. These are brand new. The first time I've shown them, they're debuting here at the gallery and at this space. There are 6 of them in existence, 3 here and 3 there. They are influenced by like 80s video game culture. I mean, I wanted there to be a reference to the pixel. I mean, I've made pixel hearts for many years now. So there's always, I like to have something that speaks to the digital world. And I think this clash of the analog and digital is very important in my work overall. So these, I just developed this new frame as a way to bring something kind of clunky, but digital but clunky.
Yeah, and it's
a little bit
digital.
retro. Yeah,
it's like retro digital.
Yeah, totally.
It's like the first movements of digital in the 80s, like really clumsy little video games.
Yeah,
and
totally.
And this is also something privately, obviously, but also in your work that you very often that you have this retro element.
Yeah.
But still, you refer to something super current very often. So how does that come together?
Well, we don't live in directly in one time. I mean, we have objects around us that are always reminding us of previous decades.
And why exactly those decades? It's usually the 60s, 70s.
Well, that's
80s.
Just my personal preference. Yeah,
that's just your personal.
And it's things that you lived through and happened just before you that I think are most for me most prevalent or most prescient in my mind. As I'm looking and thinking, I think there's just through osmosis. These, as a child, you had certain things around. It's not like I just magically, appeared in the 70s and there was nothing from the 60s left to think about. And I mean, I'm making myself sound super old now. But yeah, I think this series was about the relationship to the multiple canvas pieces, to the corner mods. To me, this is the meditative space. I wanted there to be something that was just a color field and just a very minimal amount of mark making that would be more like the psychological space. So you have this real space, and it's always the space of painting. So I'm always thinking about things on the surface. So the car decals that are hand painted, those are right on the surface of the canvas. So you're always brought back to the picture plane. And then these are like a deep space, a deep psychological space, maybe a space where you can project.
Oh, that's the first time I hear something like that from you.
Yeah? You didn't think I was this deep, right?
Actually, you were talking a couple of days ago. We had this conversation where you said, "That's deep shit," and I thought, yeah, Wendy, sure. I know that you're not. Yeah. Okay.
It only took 4 shows.
It just took. Yeah, she's so superficial. No, but it is very interesting to see, because we were talking about is how sometimes art is so hard to find the right words, because in the end it's a visual or physical experience or emotional experience.
It should be, yeah.
This is what you just 5 minutes ago. And so I'm sometimes lacking for words when I have to explain to somebody exactly those kinds of works. And it is to say, oh yeah, that is more a psychological space. Although you have to talk about surface, then suddenly this surface can take you very, very deep. And I think this is something that the people have to experience themselves in front of the work. But if I would say something like that to them, it helps them to appreciate that that's not only mark making, or it's not only the surface. The surface always kind of like points to something else.
But it still leaves it very open.
Yes,
and this is what I like.
Yeah.
Because I don't really believe in pontificating about.
What is pontificating?
Just artists who go on and on about their ideas, like to the point that it's just like, ugh. You know, I think you have to have some humility and a sense of humor as well about art making, and not take oneself too seriously. And this is what I meant about ideas being that could seem superficial to someone else, but if you allow yourself to explore them, sometimes you get to the deepest meaning if you're just real. So I don't believe in speaking in that way about art making. I believe in speaking very directly.
And is there this kind of form of kind of drawing back behind the work and being a bit more humble? So not telling the people like it's about that.
No, it's not that. I mean, I'm open. I'll say anything. I think it's about. I think again, I tend to be irreverent to the canon, and there are a lot of ways of being an artist that I don't relate to, and that I want to be different from.
That's why we love you.
Thanks. I love you too.
And you were talking about also, don't take yourself too serious, and those little. I mean, I was talking yesterday at the opening a lot about these peace signs, the alone in public, where, because on one hand, they can relate to so many things that are happening right now, where they're a little bit like, cannot stand up, they're tired lying down. But they are in a good way, because I don't like if you say, oh, this is a funny piece, but they have this humor. They are, because they're this little man, and then on the other hand you said they have, which some people actually notice, they have also a reference to Giacometti.
Oh yeah, absolutely. That was the.
How did you get, because you worked with peace signs before, how did that develop, this new?
I wanted something handmade. I wanted something that was like a drawing in space, but that felt as if hands had touched it and molded it, and they were meant to complement works that were very graphic and very very designed. So I just knew that I needed something rough. I needed something more human.
And the peace sign?
Yeah, I've been using the peace sign for a while, and obviously, I mean, it's a symbol that we've lived with, and that again, that mutability of symbols is very interesting to me. How we just immediately recognize it, but it sort of has meaning and doesn't have meaning at the same time. And it feels like a graphic element, almost. So it felt direct, and it felt a bit vulnerable to use it directly.
They have some fragility.
Oh yeah.
Also because they're so skinny, but you can also see that they're.
Yeah.
That they're kind of pressed.
This is the
hands.
Giacometti. This is the figures. They're elongated, distorted, but moving through a space. Walking, moving, gesturing, showing some personality. And so I was really inspired by that, and wanted to somehow bring that art historical reference lightly into these works, so that they would read as something familiar, at least a material or a technique that is familiar art historically, but with a brand new language, and one that was about this time. So,
yes.
I don't want to shy away from making work that is actually about right now.
No, it was like with the Jofa, where it was after the Trump election, and everybody was shocked, and a lot of artists had to find a way to do it in their own language. And without having the sign, this is political art. It's art, but if you look a little bit deeper, which I find always fascinating, you find layers and layers and layers. And that is all, even in something which is about the surface, still the surface can open up layers.
Right.
Although it's not a window and not a door.
Well, look, I contradict myself all the time. Yes. So I say it's not an illusion, it's not a window, it's not a door, and then I make pieces that like this, and I talk about deep space, and so it's everything all at once.
Oh, that's great.
This is what artists do. We invent problems, and then we solve them, and then we talk about how we solve them. Meanwhile, we're making another one, but we've made them the whole time. They didn't just appear.
Yeah, and sometimes
we
you
invented
don't
the problems
them.
to solve.
And sometimes that you don't solve them is the most interesting thing.
Yeah. Well, yeah. If you solve everything, then there's nothing left. So.
Oh, that sounds like if you solve everything, there's nothing left. That is like, we have to write that down.
Well, it's impossible to do, so don't worry. It's not happening.
So, well, we talked fast.
Yeah.
Yeah. So is there, I mean, we can open up everything, or we just can continue to, is there anything particular? For example, because you're here in Germany and you met a lot of people already, but a lot of people you don't know. And how is that always when you come here? Is that a different feeling to exhibit in another country, other language, complete different culture?
It is different. Yeah, of course. Of course it's different. I mean, there's a side of yourself that you never, I mean, I was speaking about this with my American friend who was here a couple days ago, who's lived in Germany for quite some time, and we talked about how humor is the last, your sense of humor is the last thing to translate. It's very, very hard to, I mean, and I don't speak German, so I haven't necessarily tried, but I think it's very difficult to have your whole personality viewable when you're outside of your native country, but it's also kind of blissful.
Yeah, but don't you think that there's sometimes, for example, I'm absolutely sure if I speak English, I'm not 100% the same person than when I speak German.
You can't be.
It kind of like some different aspects of your personality come out, or you're not so much identified with the language that you feel even freer in a foreign language.
Oh, maybe, yeah.
You know, so I was wondering that if you feel that this German experience or European experience adds something to...
Oh, absolutely. And especially after being here so many times and doing a museum show here as well.
Yes.
That I feel a real connection. And I was thinking about the first show that I had in 2012. Is that our first show?
Yeah, I think so.
And there was a review. And the review was very much about the way that I looked. Do you remember this?
Oh,
it was, she's in high tops and a baseball hat, and I think I appeared extremely American. Like it was just this thing that I didn't think about. I was just myself, and I arrived and just looked the way I look. But it was a kind of a big deal, at least to this person.
Yes, I think
they talk more about that than the art, right?
Yeah, I think first of all, you know, people recognize, they see the connection between the way you dress and the work. You know, they understand, everybody understood that it might come from like the same interest, you know, because some colors you wear, some like symbols or you know, three stripes.
Yeah,
it's like something that's also so it's very authentic in a way. And I think at that time or even now, a lot of artists are, you know, are dressed very casually or even sort of like sloppy because they don't want to appear.
Or in their like paint splatter pants from the studio because they have to.
You know, there's such a cliche. You know, I mean, they don't.
that's cool
you know, they
too.
don't wear bass. They don't wear this this French hat anymore. But
a beret.
But there is a cliche that you don't take care of yourself so much when it comes to clothing because everything goes into your work. And I think it's very unusual that probably not so much anymore in the last years, but it used to be unusual that somebody really takes care of that as well.
Well, this is part of the myth making that artists work very hard on. And again, that is something that I've always tried to...
Or society. Probably it's not the artists themselves.
Well, I mean, if you do it, you're contributing to the stereotype, I suppose. But everybody is comfortable with what they're comfortable with, and I happen to be comfortable, like moving, allowing it to be a lifestyle, art making, instead of a career or something that I do outside of.
No, it's your life.
It's all kind of just one big project.
It's your life's project.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure, it's not a job.
No, God, no.
No. That would be horrible.
I've had
Nobody wants to have a job.
I've had jobs. I try to make studio nothing like a job.
Yeah. And but this review kind of irritated you a bit.
It surprised me. I mean, it wasn't until later that I translated it, and I was like, oh, I thought, wow, I got this really long review. This is so cool. And then when I translated it, I was like, oh shit, this isn't positive. But no, I think. I mean, obviously now I'm kind of I don't know.
People are fascinated by this. I mean, now there was again a review. It was actually about the whole gallery tour yesterday, but the photo they chose, it was you know, in the Rheinische Post. And which was great, you know. So everybody that came in already had seen you and knew who the artist is.
Yeah, that was cool.
So that was cool because for sure, if the artist is still alive, you know, people like to know who is that person.
Yeah, everyone wants to know, and I personally like when artists are open and willing to share. This is the great thing about being digitally connected, is that you can share parts of your life if you choose to, if that's your personality. You can flesh out this, if you want to call it a persona, if that makes it sound superficial, but if you want to flesh out the person with, say, your family, or your other, like I work on cars, you know, I can have that be part of my...
You work on cars, and is that really that you are, we say Schrauber, are you really somebody who's really going there with the tools and you're really doing it yourself? So you're like a pro?
No.
No?
I'm not a pro, but I'm still learning. This is something that's in my family, and I came to it very late, but I've been working with my dad, so he's been teaching me for the last several years, so I'm still very much learning. And I only know my cars. I couldn't go work on yours, for example.
No,
I mean, I could try,
but no, but it's those old, like it's also those 70s cars that have a special look. Those American super cool
muscle cars.
Muscle car.
Yeah, that's what I'm into.
Muscle car. How many do you have right now?
2.
And they need constant work, I guess.
No, actually, they're well-running vehicles. I just, you know, little things happen, and you have to work on them. But I think of them as sculptures. I mean, I got the first one when I was making a show about car culture, which is connected to the Jeans series. So I was thinking about having grown up with a father who was interested in cars, and how that subculture, how they fit in sociopolitically in the American scene.
Yeah, I mean, the show here, there was a text by Barry Schwabsky in the catalog.
Yes.
And it was about car culture. And it was actually about how the possibility to be mobile, how that changed everything, the idea of countryside, the idea of city, the idea of suburb.
Yeah, it changed everything. And I think then the size of vehicles and fuel consumption and, you know, just expressing yourself through a vehicle. I mean, what do you drive, you know? What does it say about you? A sports car versus a sedan or minivan or whatever. So I think there's a lot of artistry. It's an extension of your, I mean, I'm always thinking about how we project our personality through branding. So even the choice of a car is a type of, I mean, you are projecting something about who you are or what you need to do. I need a van because I have to move furniture, or I need a sports car because whatever.
I'm just so cool.
Yeah, or not.
Or I'm just an idiot.
Not.
Or I have tiny dick energy.
Yeah, tiny dick energy. Whatever it is, I just love, I embrace all of that. I think it's fascinating how humans choose to describe their personality through objects. I love objects. I love old stuff. I love old materials. I love new things and new materials, and I think I've just tried to put all of that together.
So the choices you make are very conscious then, because you're very aware of that.
But they're also kind of gut decisions too. Mm.
Because I think just when you said it, I was thinking about my car. Which suddenly is like really uncool. It's like, oh, I need to have what does this car reflect my personality? If it does, what does that mean? You know, so it's like.
Well, you know, we got in and I said, "You drive an automatic?" Yes. And I was like really surprised. Like,
yes.
Somehow I just this.
No, because I used to own this old BMW 3, you know, which had still the gear, and I was like, and that was my first car. The first car, because I did my driver's license like when I was like a really old lady. It was my first car, which was super cool. And then the kind of like practical thinking came, which is probably pretty uncool. It serves me well, and then I got this automatic. And you notice the first moment that you drive an automatic.
Well,
What's kind of wrong with you?
it wasn't a judgment. It was just I was just legitimately didn't. I don't picture you.
In an automatic?
Yeah, I don't know.
So I need a sports car.
But I mean, it's not. Yeah, I mean, it's
Yeah,
it's not about being cool. It's just about being real. Like,
I understand.
I don't judge anybody for having a van.
Coolness.
I actually want a van. There's cars here that I'd love to ship over, so I need to someday have enough money to do that.
But those vans, those VW van, you know, those they are I think most of them are in America.
Really?
Yes. I think they're all in California. Some hippies are refurbishing them and they're selling them for...
There's a lot of them in California, it's true.
Yeah. So that would be the fitting van.
Yeah, they're great.
That would be the fitting van for you, because I don't think we have them anymore. In Mexico, I think they have.
they had their own line of VWs.
Yeah. Yeah, so that...
I sort of want one of the new electric campers, though.
Yeah?
The new VWs, yeah. There's a whole fleet I'd like to build.
Because I was...
But here we're really digressing into cars. This is fun.
Yes, but cars are... It has to do with your work.
Oh, yeah, well, I was talking about the sculpture.
It has to do with your work. It's sculptural, yes.
I was talking about it being concurrent with the Jean series. I was making a show about muscle car culture because I was delving into my own experience in my family and thinking about maybe trying to understand this perspective and how it related to the political tension in the U.S. from the subculture. Of course, a very narrow, there are many subcultures that influence this, but this particular one was something that I had experienced. So I was delving into it, making collages out of vintage car magazines, recasting all of the women who were lying on the hood, you know, in a bikini, and like changing the context of all of those to put women more into the dialogue as a stronger presence, a different kind of presence.
Oh yeah, I mean, like there's guns and cars that are very often very advertised in a very sexist way.
Oh yeah,
really
yeah. I know, it's gotten a
lot.
lot better, but these vintage ads were crazy. I mean, they were devastating, really, to look at. So the collage making became part of it. I was collaging the jeans, and I decided that I should buy a car and start going to car shows and having a sort of a social aspect to the project. Ooh. Where I could find out if I would be accepted.
And how was that?
It was surprising, and actually I was not only accepted, but it was just a great experience. I mean, not by everyone. Like, if my husband gets out of the passenger side and I get out of the driver's side, I've only let him drive the car like twice. He's probably watching right now. He's like,
"Hi, Michael."
But I get out of the driver's side and a man will come up and still ask him, "What kind of car is it?" And he just says, like, "I don't know, you have to ask her." But I think that part has been, I mean, people still are surprised that they're mine. But for the most part, it's been a really wonderful experience and very rewarding. And it really shattered all of my expectations.
Oh.
So that was...
So you've been embraced by the community more or less?
I mean, more than I ever thought I would be. It's not like I don't do it all the time. It's not a part of my daily life. I haven't joined the clubs outright or anything like that. But I expected no one would talk to me. Or, I just didn't expect to be welcomed.
Yeah, but probably this is about the love for cars then, mostly?
Yeah.
Probably not so much about anything else.
I think so. So it was a pretty great experience. And then, of course, I got another car. So now I have 2 cars in New York City, which is...
How do you do that? You need a parking space for them.
Yeah, and 2 parking spaces.
Yeah. And you have to rent them.
Yeah.
And because they have to be safe
It's
somewhere.
really stupid. It's a
passion.
It's a passion, yeah.
It relates to your work. And it relates to, I mean, I think America, you cannot even, I don't know how it will project into the future, but our cliche of America, when I was first in the US, I was not sure what was first there, the films about it or the country itself. I was not sure how it really originated because it was so much like in the movies. But all the idea of like suburban life, all of that, without car culture, unimaginable.
Yeah.
Without cars, you
the roads came first.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So So this is why it not only relates to the culture, the cars, if you say you treat them as like sculpture, they relate so much to what your work.
Oh,
what you're
definitely.
doing.
I think so. They're kinetic sculptures.
Exactly.
And they have a surface that I can put stickers on.
Do you?
And one of my cars is
Pretty
is
stickered?
well, I got a too nice a car, the first one, and then I needed something that I could sort of like mess up. So I got another one that is original paint and has some dents, and it came from California. And I bought it on eBay during COVID, which was kind of fun, and had it shipped across country.
Yeah, how did I mean, you just said that you kind of through COVID and through this time we all went through, it kind of like the psychic space became a little bit more important.
I think so. Do you? I mean...
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, something happened, something shifted, forever shifted, I think.
Do you think so?
I do. I do think the reverberations will be around for many years. I don't even think we know yet.
How did it like as much as you can say exactly, but what was the prime point for you, the change that was brought about in your work, in your studio practice, in your approach towards the work?
I don't know. I don't know if I can answer that. I don't know if I can put my finger on. I had a lot of friends who moved out of the city. I think I realized that my friend group was at an age where people were nervous or would change their lifestyle out of fear.
And would go to the countryside?
Yeah. And that freaked me out.
And they didn't come back?
No, they liked it. So I don't know. I had to come to grips with the fact that I'm...
But you stayed alone in the city, and I watched this wonderful sports commentary you always did from from the balcony. We have to say Wendy lives in a great apartment, and she has the one beautiful view on her balcony, and there is a kind of like a sports like
rent control in Chinatown, just so people don't think I'm like some.
Yeah, no. Anyway, I didn't even say that it's Manhattan, but and there were people during COVID sometimes doing sports, and then Wendy and her husband did a wonderful series on Instagram, which was highly amusing and very, very funny. Not only all the cocktails they mixed and the drinks, the beautiful drinks they mixed, which were also sculptures, different colors and gradients, wonderful. That was the sports commentary when anybody was doing something there, and if it's somewhere available still, I highly recommend it.
I don't think it is. I don't think it should be.
No, I think
that was just a momentary.
You should actually, I think you should do a book out of that or something.
My gosh.
It was really, really cool, and
wow.
It to my personal well-being, it really
that makes me happy.
It really added something, I have to say. And it showed so much about your mindset.
Yeah.
It showed so much that how you approached that. It was not like, oh my God, the world is so horrible. No, it was like, hey, look, still something's going on. We can still do something with that.
Cool.
So in the
I'm
end,
glad you saw that.
Something really productive came out of that. And I think that was for me
It's hilarious.
That was from like my quintessence of that time is something very productive. Not something negative, not at all.
It was also with a lot of humor. I mean, it was fun. We just had fun, and we got to show some of our city, from our view, and just have fun together. And for an audience that it's just Instagram stories, so it wasn't like
No. Yeah, sure. It was just Instagram stories, but that was what we were all watching in that during that period. And I mean, generally, that for me, that time I came out with less fear actually, and with more feeling of wanting to do exactly the things I want to do.
Oh yeah, there was definitely the focus. People became focused either in a good way or a bad way. It was I don't know what the word is, but. It was funneling, I guess.
Yeah, into something more essential, probably. And so now you finished that show with me. It's up still. It can be seen.
It just opened last night.
It just opened, but your work.
Oh yeah.
So what's coming up?
I have a break. I'm just getting back in the studio when I get home, and with no
preconceptions.
With no preconceptions and no I mean, I have to say I love when I know what space I'm working for. That's really when things
that's
get
helpful.
interesting for me. I really love installing and thinking about how, I mean, I don't just make a bunch of paintings in my studio. And then, that's why when you said pick them, I didn't say, yeah, sure, you can pick them. I didn't say anything because I always know exactly how I want to flesh out the show. So I don't just make paintings and then pick paintings and say this one, this one, this one.
Yeah, this is why it happened like
There's
that.
this one for this wall, there's this one for this wall, and then there's this for the floor. So when I don't have a space to think about, I would probably continue with the pixel frame series and maybe shift the format a little bit or the scale of those. It's probably some art fairs coming up and things like that. I'm very much about I call the show the album. I like to make albums. I'm interested in presenting work as an album with the spaces, like if you're listening to vinyl and there's spaces in between the songs, this is what I want the show to be like. And when it comes to art fairs and things like that, it's singles. So,
Okay.
yeah.
So what do I have? Rubber Soul, Sgt. Pepper? No, I think it's great to think of an album to think. Okay, all the works are the single songs in the Interior Exotics album by Wendy White.
It's more like Stevie Wonder, like fulfilling his first finale, or, something that's a little more deconstructed. But yeah, that's kind of how I think of every show, an album.
Cool.
Yeah.
So everybody who wants to listen to that album, or in that case to see it, please come to Van Horn at the Ackerstraße 99 in Düsseldorf to see the show. It's still up till mid-March, and it will be on the website from next week on. And if somebody in this room here has any questions, you're obliged to to ask questions now. Anything you want to know, as long as Wendy's here, you have the chance. Na, ihr Museumskuratoren und so. Artists and museum curators? No?
Everything is said.
Okay.
Let me ask a question. You've been to Europe a few times in the past year, and do you mean, maybe it's a stupid question, but let me ask it. Do you experience a difference between how your art is perceived if you go to France, to Switzerland, to Germany, compared to how it's perceived in the US?
There have been places where I think the work has just been immediately embraced, and other places where it takes more work, I think.
People do not.
I think it's color. I think it's color. I think it's my palettes. I think my first show was in Spain, and it was just a love fest. It was easy. It just I don't know, something about it just, the warmth translated, I think. And it's not always like that. I mean, I've shown now in Germany and Switzerland. I think it's more of a, maybe not such a direct read, but it takes a little bit more time. And they're both, I love showing any experience I think is useful and valuable, but I've had very different ones in different countries. I think in Tokyo it was interesting to see everything be mapped out so perfectly on the wall with with paper cutouts of each painting, and before the show was installed, and then the time that it took to install the multiple canvas works was like crazy. So yeah.
Although they had them laid out, and
yeah, everything just had to be absolutely
perfect.
Yes, and all of my work has an underlying handmade quality. I mean, I believe the Frank Stella, the famous quote about you should feel how something is put together from a distance. You should feel that it's made by a human. So my work has a designed quality. It has a graphic intersection of graphic and atmospheric always, but I don't enjoy perfection. It doesn't. I'm always interested in there being a gap, a space, because that's where the meaning sort of is. I'm getting off your question, but yeah, I've had some great experiences, and they've all been rewarding in their own way. Yeah.
Okay, great. So as everything is said, obviously.
I guess so.
And so thank you.
Thank you
for the talk, and to be continued.
Yeah. Thanks, everybody.
Okay, danke.
Thank you.
Cool.
Cool, yeah.